On the Road, on the Go was a fantastic segue into our next panel, which is called All for One and One for All. And when we put this panel together, I talked with Jody Holtzman, who is the Senior Vice President of Thought Leadership at AARP, which I think is probably one of the best job titles I've ever heard of. So he'll tell you a little bit about what that is, what he does for AARP. But when we talked about universal design, Jody said, you know, it's not really about designing for this older audience or Americans 50 plus. It's really about designs that work for everybody. It's really about ageless design, whether you're 18 or 80. So that's what this panel is going to talk about today. And I'm going to turn it over to Jody to introduce his panelists and kick this off.
Thanks, Sherry. Welcome, everybody. A while back, I had the opportunity to meet Vint Cerf, who's the acknowledged father of the internet. Later today, we're going to meet Martin Cooper, the acknowledged father of wireless. What is amazing about all of these things is that there are underlying technologies that at the time that they were developed, you could not have had a clue about what they were going to enable, you know, going off into the future. And the panel today is going to be talking about things that are here now that are already transforming people's lives. Some of them are, in fact, targeted at particular issues, particular needs, particular wants of an aging population. But frankly, more interesting are the opportunities to see things that a 3-year-old or my 82-year-old mother can use, right? For industry, that's maximizing your market opportunity. You know, in Washington, 100 million people is called a problem and a cost. For entrepreneurs in the business community, that's called opportunity. And I think that difference in orientation is really, you know, key to exploring what the potential of these different technologies provides. So on the stage today, we have only one person, in fact, who you will actually find in the book. And this was a test to see if you could actually do it. Unfortunately, we had to do some substitutions at the last moment. On the other hand, the substitutions you know, have raised our game, and we're really excited. So the person in the book is my colleague Mike Lee, who is, I refer to him as our digital guru. He's nodding. Yeah, I guess there's something to it. To my right immediately is Gary Kay, who has a history in media, television. I think it was NBC, is that right?
NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox Business couldn't hold the job.
Yeah, he's got commitment issues. And writes actually for AARP on technology. And to Mike's right is my friend and mentor, Mary Furlong, who is one of a very short list of pathbreakers in the field of putting a spotlight on the opportunity and needs of the boomer marketplace. So with that, let me just start with you, Gary, and just share with the audience a little about just some of the things that you're seeing. So I'm thinking that there are these two big buckets. There's the bucket of needs and wants, very often associated with the decline of aging, and that there's a need to respond to that to make life better. And then there's this bigger bucket that really is about transforming and creating social change because our behaviors, our underlying behaviors will change that new technologies are going to enable. Or choose not to answer my question and say anything you like.
Yeah, I can't afford that luxury, Jody. Jake Siegel's been up here for 4 years doing this. This is only my third, so
In the 3 years that I've been talking about boomers and gadgets, we're actually now starting to see some palpable progress, which is to me very encouraging. The real problem has been to get the major CE companies, when I say the major CE companies, I'm talking about like the General Electrics and the Hewlett-Packards and the Dell Computers of the world, to understand that our market is legitimate and they really do want to sell to us, but we need some stuff. This year, for the first time, I've actually seen some tremendous progress. There are new desktop computers out, not just the stuff you're seeing in the exhibit, the made-for-senior stuff, but computers coming from Hewlett-Packard in particular, and Asus, the Taiwanese company, just introduced one as well. And these are large, all-in-one desktop computers that have multi-touch and tilt down. And they are terrific for seniors, but they're also terrific for intergenerational computing. You can have a grandfather and a grandchild sitting at the same computer, virtually flat on a desktop, drawing pictures, illustrating notes, flipping through pictures. It's a wonderful experience. From my perspective, my eyesight ain't so good, I don't know about the rest of you, but having a computer where I can routinely blow stuff up, pinch and blow it up, is just marvelous. HP basically said, one of the problems with this is if you do it, your arm is out like that all day long, and you get what they call gorilla arm. So they decided to tilt it. Asus has now followed suit. But, up until now, or should I say, up until these innovations in the course of the last year, certainly in terms of computing, universal design has been sort of a boutique attitude instead of mainstream. I'm so encouraged by the fact that these guys are now saying universal design is part of what we're doing for a living. There are other places where we're still a long way from getting to where we need to go. How many of you have smartphones? How many of you without glasses can read the writing under the icons? Yeah, what's with that?
Let the record show you're all 12.
I mean, what's with that? Why can't Apple or Google give us a smartphone operating system where instead of having 20 icons...
And that's a really interesting point. So I remember trying to introduce my mother to an iPhone. And I thought, great, she'd just pinch, make it bigger, it would all work. And she could not get, she couldn't get the finger to the icon. It was too small for her. And she's 82. But she also couldn't read it. The iPad comes along, and all of a sudden the scale is different, the spacing is different, So why can't you do that on a small thing unless you're trying to fit as much as you can onto a screen?
Right, but even if you try and fit as much, why not have the option of being able to say, all I want is 4 icons on my home screen and not 20 of them? It's a software fix, and it shouldn't be, pardon me, rocket science to get that done. The other thing that I see is still going on is that, Microsoft, Apple, everybody has these nice accessibility settings so that in theory you can tweak the fonts, you can tweak the screen so that it conforms more readily to your hearing abilities, your visual abilities, and so on. But you actually do need to almost be an engineer to be able to drill down to find those settings in a lot of the implementations.
Doesn't everybody like the blue banner in Word, that has, blue field with a 4-point font in blue ink on top of the blue field? That, to Gary's point, I actually asked the accessibility group at Microsoft about that, and because we had just changed over at AARP and I couldn't read the screen. And they said, oh, it's easy, you just change it. And I said, yeah, right. You know, and they can't, and the problem is that the accessibility group is this, the do-gooders in the organization. It's not embedded into everything. It's a corporate responsibility kind of thing. It's an afterthought.
The other issue that I think is relatively easy for these guys to fix if they gave it more than 10 seconds worth of thought is the instruction manual. You know, how many of you have opened up the box for a home router? Yeah. A lot of fun, isn't it? Have you tried doing the security settings? So, you know, here are products that we're using. We're major consumers of this stuff. And so far, one of the things that bothers me the most is that we as a collective group have been unable to articulate a demand to get these guys moving. Maybe if we all went out and told the guys at Best Buy, we're not going to take it unless we can understand it. Or if we take it home and we can't understand it, we bring it back the next day. And if that starts happening over and over again, maybe they'll start getting the message. But the good news, as I said, is yes, we've made some progress over the last year, but you know, as the Chinese say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We're about at step one.
Great. Mary.
I may need to borrow that flashlight thing, but I'm going to let you be my sis-up.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jody. Because I actually, I'm going to tell you that I don't want to drive that car. I want a pontoon car that I can party in. And I created one this morning. So I said, who needs a ride to the convention center? Found a little guy from Microsoft who found 9 other people to put in a limousine, and we partied over here. Now, how many of you would rather go home in a pontoon party car rather than drive your car? So I think the service economy has been forgotten in a bit. And Silver Ride is one of the companies that, you know, will give you a ride. And I think that the boomers are going to want reverse mentors, like Mike is going to be my reverse mentor on the slides today. And I think we forgot all the concierge services around learning the new technology. So that's one piece that I haven't heard of today.
And one of the reasons why Best Buy did buy Geek Squad.
Exactly. So my second point is fashion. So I get more compliments on my iPad case. In fact, Joe Coughlin of the MIT Media Lab did not compliment my technology Age Lab. He complimented the fashion. So I sent him a really nice looking case for his piece. But I'm up here today taking Susan Walker's place because she's home being a caregiver. And Susan was the founder of the Silver Summit. So she has key points she wants me to make, and I want to make those points. But I just want to say 1 or 2 things before, and I promise to keep to the time limit. One is that I was the founder of SeniorNet. That was 33 years ago. Okay. I was just going to say I was the founder of SeniorNet 33 years ago when we had 300 baud modems and senior citizens. Now I wear flat shoes. I'm 63 years old. I want to go out in a pontoon car. I spend 10 hours a day with my iPad. Sometimes at night, I spend time with it listening to music, to movies, and reading books. So this is how I listen to Steve Jobs' book. When I see an older person, like yesterday, go into an assisted living facility, especially if she's a widow, I say, you need an iPad, you need to be able to download movies from your generation, because you have a lot of time on your hands. So when Emilio talked about purpose and entrepreneurship, the boomers, because 69% are financing the lives of their adult children and grandchildren, have become entrepreneurs, and thus we have to learn how to text, Skype, tweet, LinkedIn. The most significant thing we can do to help Sherry, who's produced this wonderful conference, is to tweet about it and to share the knowledge from this event. So I think that it is design, I think it is service, I think it is fashion, and I think it's paying acute attention to the needs of the seniors that requires design for all. Now, Lori Bitter spoke earlier today about grandchildren, and I know she has a new grandchild. So the killer application is FaceTime with your grandchild. How many of you Skype or talk to your grandchildren here? The reason the boomers are on Facebook is to know what goes on in the lives of their children. So the key theme I've seen for the last 30 years is it's not about the technology, it's about the application to the human needs. And we haven't cured loneliness. Widows need computers more than anyone. So let's look at some of Susan's ideas about design for all and see how they match.
Let me just survey the audience. I'm really curious. So boomers and up in the audience, who amongst you tweets?
Jody, I've not only found, I used to write a newsletter, now it's the tweets that have magnified my business. Do you find that?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think, Twitter really is this sort of cloud of not only broadcasting your status to your circle of friends and family, but it's, it can become anything, news, communication medium, and even an orchestration mode to find your friends and figure out where to be and solve problems.
And know what to read or who to follow. I think it's the biggest thing you could do to help your business. So in the slide, Susan talks about intuitive, aware, assistive, and smart. So wireless, I recently took my MBA students to Brazil, and I said, it's a Catholic Jesuit university, I think we should go to Mass, and they said, does it have wireless? So that was the key in terms of going to Mass. We fly Virgin because it is wireless. I love watching people land on the airplane to check their messages. How connected are we? And the younger generation drives this. None of us woke up in the morning and said, I want to text all day in small print. That's because our twin grandchildren said, meet us for ice cream. So we're right about that. She's right about the cloud. Now, I'm trying to migrate my small business into the cloud. I don't know what cloud it's on. I don't know what cloud to choose. And I'm really scared that everything is going to get lost in the cloud. But intuitively, I know that we need to have cloud technology. So I'm very excited, and Mike can explain to us which ones to choose that we are going to want. Not only for the photo archives in our family, but for all the businesses we create and all the passions that we have. Touch is really important. I'd like you to come to my hotel room because I can't find the lights and make them work. So, and it's one of the more modern hotels here. You can touch everything, but it's not exactly intuitive how to make the phone work, the television work, or the lights work. But I think we are moving to that. And to wearable sensors. Now, let's talk about the next piece. And Jody, actually, you have some ideas about this. Smart voice location awareness.
Well, I mean, Siri is getting huge amount of attention with the iPhone 4S. But to me, it's really not. These are two applications of underlying technology, and what I'm suggesting is that we haven't even begun to see what the potential is once we really do get into voice-activated technologies, as well as the underlying technology of Connect, which requires no handheld anything. It's just responding, to your body. So, if I were to put on my futurist's hat, I would be looking at what underlies these two things as elements that are going to shape technology, really for the next 15 years. I don't know about you guys. I'm a Trekkie. And when Picard says computer, it's like stuff happens, and that's what I'm waiting for.
Well, we're seeing Intel is actually doing an awful lot of research into what they're calling context-aware computing. And ultimately, we'll have connected devices that will be able to not only tell what we're doing, but based on the calendar, based on social networking, where we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to get there, the traffic that's between here and there, so we'll know if we need to leave the house 15 minutes earlier. And all of that is going to come to pass. And frankly, I think in the long run, it really will improve the quality of our lives, and it's going to have particular relevance to those of us whose short-term memory is going down the tubes really fast.
And that's where data comes in. And I'm not talking about bits and bytes.
You're going to hear more about weight loss in the Digital Health Summit, I'm sure. And we know at over 40, weight loss is like chipping concrete. So if you can find machines that make it fun to play, intergenerational, and lose weight, I think that's all a good thing. I've also seen people testify before Congress about stroke victims and how important it's going to be. You know, the boomers are now 66, so there's a high correlation between chronic disease management and where the boomers are. And we're going to be looking increasingly at assistive compliance and smart healthcare. And I'm not sure we're going to want all this data back to us and to know what to do with it, but I think that is a piece of the future. I heard that the bathroom of the future for one of the large companies was video games for men and spas for women, because this younger boomer generation now grew up with Pac-Man, and we've all grown up with Pogo. So, Jody, you were talking about in Japan this technology. Tell us about the toilets in Japan. I don't really want to talk about it.
I don't really want to talk about the toilets. But I do think that Japan is really interesting because, so Japan has like 2 shows, not quite as big as CES, but humongous shows just on technology related to aging. Well, you know, first of all, it's a gadget culture. But second of all, they've been dealing with the demographics, you know, of the population for a long time. And it became a national issue, you know, before it did in any other Western countries. So the kinds of things you have here with smart hips and the toilets and everything else, you know, I think there's opportunity really to look to what they're doing in Japan and then to figure out what the adaptions, you know, might be here in the U.S. What is fascinating is you're not seeing the Japanese companies en masse trying to simply enter the U.S. market with a lot of stuff that they already have for an aging market in their own country.
And since you're looking at the market, the one thing we want to say, it is a global marketplace. We do a business plan competition in Silicon Valley every year. Medical device wins every single year. So more value creation for the venture community comes out of medical device than any other category. And if you look at Philips and their acquisition of rehab hospitals, you could see anything in that category is going to be really important, just like medical tourism is going to be really important. So on our dream list, I guess what I would say, Susan wants a home that she can just press one button and having everything configure. In the 30 years of working with older people, I've never heard a woman say to me that she wouldn't like to see lighting in the house in case she has to get up at night. And so I think lighting's incredibly important. I think services are incredibly important. I think elegant design is great. I was here at the hearing aid conference last week. I said, if you could make them look like earrings instead of hearing aids, we might wear them, because the average age person gets a hearing aid at 69, but you know you need one at 66, unless you don't really want to listen to each other. So, you know, which is also a possibility. So I think on my dream list is a sysop. That would be number 1, is a reverse mentor like Mike. Continue to get these user interfaces right. Make it so we can connect with our families, fall in love, continue our work. And there's a big marketplace in that entrepreneurship market for coaches, for technology, and you ought to go after it. So those are my thoughts.
Great. Can we fast forward a couple of the slides to Mike's slides?
That's it.
Oh, that is it. I guess we're there.
We're there and ready. Well, these themes really resonate with me. I tend to be on the edge of operations at AARP, looking at portable content, mobile, and tablets. I probably have the second or third best job in the company. I think Jody has the second best job.
Reverse.
I play across broadcast, print, web. And fortunately, we have an audience that kind of lags behind the middle market a bit, so we're not doing all-nighters all the time. But this show, I don't know if I could call it watershed or not, but we're at a time now where if you look at the history of technology, and that's inclusive of software, hardware, processes that have all been sort of dropped into this funnel, and as a natural consequence of how technologies mature, they get smaller every year. It's Moore's Law, every 18 months it's going to cost half of what it is. Software now, thankfully, is programmers have they're lazy. They don't want to write a new menu drop down or a new button, so let's make that just like an object and then piece all those together like Lego blocks, and you can build software faster and learn from that and change it more quickly. And then there's no better sort of area to see that than in mobile, where on your iPhone and iPad there's a software update that Apple or Android forces you to do every few weeks. So the pace of change is astounding. And at the bottom of this funnel, I kind of feel like we're at this lower threshold of, wait a minute, I don't want it to be so miniature. You're talking about the post-PC era where the computer is going to go away, and Mary said, well, stuff's going to be embedded into everything, and Susan's saying that as well. That actually kind of makes me worried. I'd like to see my stuff, and where is it going? It's a little scarier even when you look into the cloud, because basically the future is, Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon are all vying to store your stuff out somewhere in a data center. And in between, everything is that we once saw as physical media is embedded into your everyday surroundings or in your glasses or earrings. And there's a huge opportunity also in the interfaces, as you were saying, that they're a mess. If you Google the images of Android launchers, like the people who own Android phones are geeky and they like to load in different themes that change the Android buttons and the colors in the backgrounds, and they're all just impossible to use. So there's tantalizing work starting to happen there where people are building a launcher that's simplified for the older population. A group in Norway is doing a Facebook client for dementia patients. So it's just, I think this stuff's not hard. I think we have to sort of set an agenda, put some mandates out there, get some commitments to build some of this stuff.
Can I just respond to that for a second?
Yeah.
Because I was with an expert, I was at an assisted living facility yesterday, and turns out for dementia patients, music, art, creativity, gardening, the applications there are going to be profoundly important. You can really change the life of an Alzheimer's patient by playing Mozart to them. I mean, by finding that on Pandora. And I just think they should give them one when they come into the assisted living,
Yeah. I just have 3 slides, and the take that I thought I would bring here is some technologies that are out there in the form of components that could be part of products, and there are also components that are put out there in an affordable way and an accessible way. This is sort of a good slide to start on, contrasting the iPad with one of these daylight readable screen technologies. Pixel Chi is here in the South Hall. The CEO, Mary Lou Jepson, is if you haven't met her, and I think I need to introduce you, Mary, wonderful thinker, not just, what's the latest gadget, what's the best screen I can sort of get revenue off of, but really is interested in improving computer screens for people with vision impairment. And so she's started doing some new thinking there.
Now, I mean, one of the issues we all know, first of all, e-readers, humongous market in the 50 plus, particularly women. But if I want to read Kindle on my iPad, I better be indoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about once these things happen, all of a sudden market opportunity expands both ways.
Yeah, and because the iPad rules the market, they just kind of habituated us to their product through marketing to say, well, it's just this great revolutionary magical product, but it doesn't work in daylight, but we'll overlook that. You can't take it outside. It absolutely doesn't work. And so the market has stepped up to grab that opportunity with $79 Kindles and Nook Simple Touches that basically are an accessory to your iPad. You don't have to think about it. If you
So do you see something like this being licensed by an Apple eventually, or they come up with their own version of it?
You know, who knows? Yeah, I mean, there's some technologies in the daylight readable space. Mirasol just
Yeah, I was
showed
going
a
to say,
bunch of new.
Qualcomm, bought
Qualcomm.
Mirasol, but hadn't really been able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and I'm anxious to see some of the actual devices that are on the show floor. In terms of a component, Mary Lou actually, so on the right is that screen, and it actually, if you're using it indoors, it looks like a transmissive, regular LCD screen, and then you just literally can take your laptop and walk outside with it, and you can read it in broad daylight. And this innovation came about from basically a design constraint in the One Laptop Per Child project, where they said, kids in Africa are under a tree with no electricity, no walls, no schools, and if we're going to get them any kind of technology, it can't be a screen that just goes black in daylight. So, long story short, what Mary Lou realized in the way of, innovating adjacent possibilities was that she went to screen manufacturers in Asia, and they had never thought to retool the stacking order of the components that are in LCD screens. And she said, well, why don't you put a layer of silver foil in there, and then over every pixel that lights up, punch a little hole in there so that the light still gets through, but when you get outdoors, there's a reflective component as well. And so without trying to get several $1 billion in investment in building a new plant, she worked with existing manufacturing lines and came out with this optimized design. She has funding from 3M now. And then, beautifully released it as a kit through the maker community in California, so that people who were anxious to play with this could buy the kit and retrofit it into a netbook, those the tinkerers. So I did that, of course, last summer. It was a lot of fun. And then, I don't think they're here, but this was a project that was shown at the launch event last February, and literally within minutes, they got $100,000 in seed funding, and it's called Green Goose, and literally it's a little green egg full of electronics that you plug into your Wi-Fi router, and there are these stickers that communicate by a special radio protocol that you just stick on stuff around your house. So the example that he showed that got him the funding was, I'm going to stick this sticker on mom's water bottle, and basically every time you pick up the bottle and take a drink, it senses that movement, and software can see that there's activity, and mom is doing okay. This is a $49 starter kit that you can get now. There's applications you can put it on your pet, and security monitoring, things like that. But I'm just really jazzed by what would have been an exotic technology years ago, but now released as a fun kit to encourage people to experiment with. And I think even product engineers and big corporations will be playing with this. And then lastly, away from the hardware side, here's one of my favorite apps, and I have to disclose that's my 8-year-old daughter on the iPhone, Sienna, who is on the kids team at the Human Computer Interface Lab testing software. So her clients are Nickelodeon and the Park Service. So I'm going to give her my resume soon. But the lab here has specialized for years in software for children, children's digital library. How do you develop a search interface for children who can't read yet, but they need to find a book? So you can search by color and in a cartoon-like interface. So they naturally, in the progression of working with children, realized, well, through all the studies that we've been talking about, grandparents or older adults in the children's lives are a huge force, and why, aren't they an agent in sort of human-computer interactions? So this Story Kit is a test bed of an iPhone app for intergenerational story creation. So literally, you could be at a picnic, and my daughter could bring this, and she has taken up to her grandmother at the picnic table, and let's write a story about what we saw out here in the park.
I recently heard the Assistant Secretary of Education say that 1 in 5 children are not ready for kindergarten academically. So, part of this is the joy of this, and part of it is the necessity.
And so this is up there. I'll probably put this on the AARP blog, these 3 projects. But, interestingly, as a test bed, they, through the design of the software, looked at, well, how do you pinch and zoom? You take a picture, it drops it into the storybook page. You record a sound, it drops a sound icon into the page, and you can move them around page by page and make these stories. But literally, they found that seniors would try to pinch and zoom, and they couldn't grab some of these small pieces. I mean, I think the touch screen has a lot of barriers to people with declining sensation in their fingers, and so they have a one tap on, one tap off pattern that I find fascinating, which just says, look, you're going to miss, and before you finish your pinch to zoom, go ahead and have the computer take the one finger, and wherever the other finger lands and starts moving, make the zoom start to happen. Don't force the person to get both fingers on the picture before you can zoom. So. That's great.
That's fabulous. Just for little time we have left, we have time for a little bit of Q&A. This has really been kind of all over the field. Take it away.
Very interesting to listen to you discuss the movement in software as well as the movement in hardware. And I wanted to ask the panel, where do you think the greatest need is for software development that will assist this market?
You want to start?
Well, one of the things that I think we really need is to make the interfaces with all of these devices far more intuitive. And I think a lot of that is going to be software fix, and whether it's going to be improvements in voice recognition, whether it's going to be eye tracking, all of those things, because the reality is that our visual acuity, our auditory abilities, and our physical dexterity are all starting to deteriorate. And so for us to be able to interact with this whole range of devices, we're going to need easier interfaces. And I think that's one place where I'm hoping for some significant software improvements.
Mike?
Yeah, and I think the pace of that finally is fast enough that you'll see some change. At AARP, we found that developing apps, software for different devices is very expensive because you got to redo it for each phone platform out there. So we're mounting a big move to HTML5 for our website, and that's where we see some opportunity to improve our interfaces much more quickly. The website, as it loads into any mobile browser, as it presents tools, should just work. And so we definitely have some work ahead of us.
So I'd say 2 things. One is focus on the roles the boomers are going to take in the future as travelers, as producers, as creators, as grandparents, as widows, and think about design as entrepreneurs and design around that. And then secondly, every dissidence of aging is a huge market opportunity. So you can never go wrong focusing on health and wellness and vitality.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name's Sandy Berger, and over the years I've worked a lot with Japanese groups focused on seniors. They've got a big leg up on what we're doing. And it's always amazed me that those products have not come here, as you mentioned. So why do you think that is, and do you think there's hope in the future that we get some sort of a stream coming from Japan?
I don't know the answer to it. I've got a Japanese car. I've got a Japanese television set. It's not like there hasn't been, products that have made the way across the Pacific. I really don't know, but I do think I would postulate that it will happen when American companies go there and bring it back. Okay. That it'll go there and be looked at through the lens of the American cultural home. And experience, and who the boomers are. I mean, I do not believe you can minimize at all the cultural differences in how seniors are viewed in society, how they're treated, the support services that exist for them, et cetera. So maybe an artificial hip will come. I still play basketball. I'm 58. Maybe I'll need new knees. Knock wood, I won't. But I think it's going to be, you know, kind of Marco Polo going to find the spaghetti.
You might be right. We might need some American companies to go there and bring it back. They've got a ton of things we could use.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much.